opinion, but have a look at the thing in your hand and agree with my views, okay?
Oh, sorry about that. Good evening, my name is Alan G4EZO, and this evening, with the help of our cameraman, Ted G8HYI, we're hoping to visit some of the shacks of the Chester Radio Society members. It might be an ideal opportunity to start with my own shack, which is located about 2 miles north of Chester in Vickers Cross. And I think first of all we'll turn that HF rig down just a little bit so you can hear what I'm saying. The shack is, well, it forms part of the garage, the end section of the garage, which is bricked up with rather thick concrete bricks. This is very handy to keep the sound away from the neighbours, and also for the listening of the early hours, and this doesn't disturb the family. Looking from the top of the shack, the top shelf is basically for my test equipment. To the left hand end there's a regulated power supply for use with all logic circuits. It delivers 5 volts, about 4 or 5 amps. Piece of test equipment, well, I call it test equipment, is a power supply which there aren't too many of. This was designed for the Pi Cambridge transceiver, and that's the proper one to go with it. Above it is a homemade through-line VHF watt meter, and above that is a homemade digital clock. Moving to the right, a UHF signal generator which covers up to 430 meg or thereabouts, just scraped in on 77s actually. Above that, colour television service generator. This is very handy for the television aspect of amateur radio. What nobody should be without is the double beam oscilloscope made by Telequipment. A few years old now, but still serves very well indeed. We then move on to VHF signal generators with a maximum frequency range of 250 megahertz. Tucked away in the corner, I don't know whether you can see, with our excellent cameraman there, but that's a grid dip oscillator, a Lafayette one. And what might be of interest to some of our HF merchants, if I blow the dust off, is rather a nice Morse key. One of the showpieces of the shack in actual fact, and providing it doesn't reflect too much on the lens. The basic key unit itself was obtained for me by our president, Dennis G4EZO, and another friend of mine made that very nice base. All I've got to do now is to make use of it. If we move on to the general working area of the shack, the rig you see here on the left hand side is the Trio multi-mode VHF rig. This is the TS700G, capable of 10 watts out, both in the AM, FM and single sideband modes. Tunes 144 to 146, continuously tunable on the main dial. It also has 11 crystal channels, which are very handy if you should put the rig in the car and want to have spot frequency selection rather than trying to tune the dial whilst you're mobile. Obviously this means it runs off 12 volts and off mains. Just below here is the frequency counter, which I dare say some of you will recognise. It's a 600 meg frequency counter, and this recently won the Chester Radio Society's constructional contest. Moving to the right, this is a very new acquisition in the shack, the Trio TS120V. This is an HF rig capable of 10 watts output, covering from 80 metres up to 15. Haven't had too much chance to evaluate it yet, but it appears to be very good indeed. Below it is the ATU, which covers the identical bands to that of the TS120. Rig on top at the present is out of the car. It's a mobile rig. It's a 7200G, here again 10 watts out, and at the moment it's tuned to our local net channel, which is S11 145.275. The big beast to the right is the power supply, which provides power to the 120, and in this case 7200G. At the moment I'm working on the Pi UHF Westminster, the W15U. It was on a single channel, GB3CR in actual fact, which is a local Chester repeater. I'm now modifying it for 7 channels, eventually mounting it into the vehicle, where that control unit will sit under the dashboard, and the main unit will sit in the boot with this long cable. And we'll be mobile on UHF, both CR and other repeaters. Very, very handy addition to any man's shack is the UHF pocket phone. Here again, this is on GB3CR. It appears to be active as well, yes. Very nice, handheld, batteries will last for about 8 hours, depending on the use obviously. When it requires to be charged, insert it into the custom built battery charger, press down, and the LEDs give an indication that the pocket phone battery is on charge. If you wish to charge a separate battery, here again, this can be done, just inserting into the charger. Anyway, I think that's probably enough of this shack at the moment. Possibly we may have a look at the aerials outside, and then we'll proceed to the next shack. You're now looking at the ladder feeder to the HF dipole. One end of it conveniently attaches to my neighbour's guttering due to the length of my garden, whilst the other end, as you can see, goes through an insulator mounted on the VHF mast, then carries on to the front of the house to get the full length of the aerial. Looking at the VHF UHF mast, at the top we have the 18 element power beam. At the moment this is beaming south. Some 3 or 4 feet below there's a crossed 8 element Yagi on 2 meters. A little bit lower than that is the rotator, and a foot below that is the vertical dipole for 2 meters. At this angle I don't think our cameraman can see the UHF vertical dipole, which is directly behind the mast. Well, we've now come to Farndon, which is 8 miles south of Chester, to see Paul, G4EZO, and I'm sorry to have to bring you to the front of your very nice looking bungalow, Paul, but we were very impressed with the aerial up there, so I think you should describe it to us before we go into your shack. So what's it do, and what bands does it cover?
Well, good evening, gentlemen. This is the HQ1 mini quad you can see here in the background.
Yeah.
It covers 20 metres, 15 metres and 10 metres, and 6 metres as a bonus. And as you see there, it's mounted on the AR40 rotator. The antenna is very much a compromise. It works very well indeed on 10 metres, but on 20 metres it's just like a revolving dipole.
I see. What's these little twirly bits on the
twirly
corner,
bits
Paul?
there are to account for the shortening of the elements, and they give the capacitive effect on the end.
I see.
And quite critical tuning can be affected by shortening.
And how is the aerial fed?
With 75 ohm coax, and you can actually see the ball and possibly just on the end of the feeder.
Yes, it's probably a little bit difficult from the camera from here.
There is a ordinary 1-to-1 balun on it.
Well, before the camera crew and the lighting engineer catches a cold, we'll pop into your shack, shall we?
Right, okay.
Okay? We've now come to the bottom of Paul's garden, where he's got a very, very nice shack, about 8 by 6 of the normal wood construction. And Paul, would you like to describe your rig, possibly starting from the left and working round, and tell us all about what you're doing? And I think you've even got a constructional project in hand there, haven't you?
Yes.
Right, Paul, away you go.
I must say, the shack doesn't normally look this tidy. I made a special job, and I've just discovered I got a bench that side now. Anyhow, I work this way. This first item here on the bench is the control unit for the AR40 rotator. It's not quite as comprehensive as some rotator control units, but I've got it calibrated every 45 degrees, which is accurate enough for this antenna I'm using. On 10 metres it's fairly sharp, but certainly not to within 20 or 30 degrees or so. So that's that unit there. You just push the button and the rotator turns, the red light comes on, and it switches off when it stops. So that's quite a simple item. This here is the Solar Artron CD1400 scope. It's a dual beam 15 meg scope, which I managed to get from work. Paid the princely sum of £13 for that, plus VAT.
Sounds like a bargain now.
I saw at the Manchester show they were £165.
Definitely
so
a bargain.
I should have had another couple of those.
How about the box to the right of the scope, Paul? What's that?
Right, this here is the speech compressor. I brought that along to the club a few weeks ago. 1 or 2 people may have seen that. That's a log processor. It's not a clipper. It's quite an interesting little circuit, and I found it very effective on the bands. I get good reports with it, and as only Dennis says, it sounds a bit raspy.
That's EWZ, of course.
Yeah.
How about the box that appears to match the speech processor port on the top of your speaker?
I'm calling this a TZO line now. They're standard radio spares cases, but they're very cheap. I think they're only about £2 each, and I'm building all my little bits and pieces in them now.
Does this mean we'll see your products in radio communication shortly then, or not?
Not likely, no.
Just a prototype.
Quite so. This is a two-tone test oscillator that's also been along to the club. I built that when I was doing the linear project, and I find that very useful in combination with the scope there for showing me what the linear is doing. Now the rig is the Yaesu FT200, which is probably well known to many people.
Does it cover all bands? Or?
It's 80 metres to 10 metres, and
what sort of power output is it?
About 240 watts input, and on 10 metres I get about 120 watts output.
Yeah. With the beam there, Paul, that we've just seen, do you get any form of TVI?
I did, but I don't think I get any now. I did have the post office along and they gave me the all clear.
Very good.
Since I put the balun on, I think that may have improved things. I've certainly had no complaints since I put the balun on.
Good. How about the...
This is the little SWR meter I think many people are familiar with. Very simple thing, only costs £10, and I think it's one of the most useful items in the shack.
What sort of power will that handle then?
That goes up to about 200 watts, I think. It is calibrated. There's a little Japanese calibration chart, but I don't pay much heed to that. So there we are. This here is the linear amplifier, which has also been down to the club. That's running about 200 watts PEP at the moment, and I use that quite often on 10 metres summer skids with South Africa.
Here again, does this cause any TVI or?
I've had no complaints at all using the linear amplifier, no.
That's down to your excellent design, I presume.
Not my excellent design, no.
What circuit is it, Paul?
It's out of the Ragcom, about 1965, 240X 250s in parallel, and it isn't running its full output at the moment due to the fact I've only got about 1200 volts on the EHT. If I want to wind that up to about 2.2, we should get a little bit more out of it. Should run about 400 watts. But I get about 2 S points improvement when I put that on.
What's the BNC socket combination up above the linear there? Looks very impressive.
This has been imported into the shack very recently.
I think I've seen that at Dave JMS, haven't I?
That's
I
right,
yes.
And he's passed it on to me for the clock portion, so I'm a little bit more precise in my timing. In the background here, just of interest, most people will be familiar with the Great Circle map, and I find that very useful when I'm working VX. And I've got to pinpoint fairly precisely where they are.
Your QSL cards certainly look very impressive up there.
Yes, these are all the cards I had when I was ZS6EX here.
Oh, that's when you were in Johannesburg, was it?
Johannesburg,
yes.
Those are all those.
Right, Paul, to move away from the QSL cards for a moment, this appears to be the constructional side of the shack, does it not? And,
this is the side that's been tidied up.
Right. Well, tell us what you're doing then.
Well, at the moment I've got this RTTY terminal unit project on, and I'm halfway through assembling the chassis here now, and these are the printed wiring boards that I've been constructing, so they're complete. It's just now putting the hardware in this unit here. And if you want to look at these a little bit closer, these are the terminal unit boards. These are the standard 88 millihenry coils that are used quite commonly, and this hasn't actually been tested yet, this unit, but this unit here, the frequency shift keyer, works very well indeed. There's quite a bit more to go on there yet. So
how long before you're going to finish it then?
That may well be in a constructional contest in about 2 years' time.
I see. And possibly a demonstration at the club?
Well, if it works, yes.
Very good.
If it works. I've got a teleprinter to go here yet. I don't know where I'm going to put that. Anyhow, to just move quickly down the side here now. This is a stabilised power supply, which Dave will recognise. That was
Which Dave
working
is
up
We've
in
got so many Daves.
Yes, yes.
This is Dave GW4FGC, would it be?
That's quite right, yes. That came from up there, 50p I think at a junk sale. Very good value that, and I use that to run the TCS here, which I've got for general coverage, and that wants a little bit of work on it at the moment.
What's the pie rig on the top of it?
The pie rig, that's on S11, the Chesternet channel.
Oh, it's an FM Cambridge, is it?
Oh, yes, yes.
Very good.
Very pleased with that. And the last little item you can see on the far right hand side here is something else will be familiar to somebody at the club, to Eric. That was, I think, 30p at a junk sale. That's a little RF signal generator. Which,
this is Eric GW4GSG?
That's correct. And that works quite well as well. I'm very happy with it for the money paid.
Well, that's fine, Paul. I think that virtually wraps it up. I don't think you want to describe your jump shelf up on the top here,
No, I hope you can't see that.
No, well, I think we can. And of course you've got the old analogue clock sitting on the wall there.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much indeed, Paul. That's very
All right.
kind of you. We're going to move on now and have a look at somebody else's shack.
Okay.
Right, we've motored over the border now, just into North Wales, to GW4GTE. Dave is located in Buckley, which is 10 miles west of Chester, would you say?
About 10 miles, yeah.
Dave has one of the rare QTHs of being very, very high indeed. Well, I say indeed, compared with what I am at Chester. What height are you above sea level, Dave?
Well, it's actually about 500 feet above sea level. The actual contour goes to the house on the OS map.
Yeah, and say on VHF, how far can you work? Oh, under normal
conditions, just about to the south coast on 2 metres. And
this is with a sort of a public widening signal, is it?
Well, yeah, with a beam, yeah.
Yeah,
oh.
well, we're all struggling in the noise. Very good. Well, Dave's shack is situated in the smallest bedroom of the house. You can probably see we're a little bit cramped at the moment with 2 of us in here. So I'm going to ask Dave to describe his shack, and I'll duck down out of the way, Dave, and I'll let you carry on from left to right and tell us all about all these goodies here. Okay.
It's all going to fit in. Right, we'll go left to right. On the windowsill, I've got a couple of amplifiers. The bottom one, which is this device here, is a 2 metre linear amplifier. I say linear in the loosest sense of the term.
Is this a VHF linear?
That's a 2 metre one.
Yeah.
The bottom one.
How about the box on top?
I've seen about 500 watts RMS out of that actually, so
yes.
It puts the watts out on a bird through line. The top one, this is a 70 centimetre amplifier, which is construction isn't quite as good on that one. The bottom box is the power supply, and the top box is a 2C39 standard tune circuit.
470
tune circuit in the grid sort of thing. And that's for 70 centimetres. It's actually not in use at the moment. That's why there's only one wire going in and none coming out.
Right, moving over to the top there now. It looks like you've got a lot of pocket phone batteries there.
To the top there, yeah. This is a little bargain I picked up off Arthur AWS actually for charging pocket phone batteries. Very useful. You can charge 12 red ones, 12 yellow ones at the same time. And I just leave it on all the time on trickle, so that I sort of slowly cycle them through. So I put a duff one in and pull another one and charge one out, and by the time we got to the top of the rack again, even on trickle, they're fully charged.
I see. Now, why the red ones and why the yellow ones?
Well, you've actually got 2 sorts of batteries. Once the yellow sort is on the receiver, that's the yellow sort.
Oh, I see. This is what, the 9 volt one, is it?
That's a 9 volt NiCad, yeah. It's a 9 volt one. The transmitter requires a bit more oomph behind it, and the transmitter has got the, if I can get it out, it's got the red ones.
I see. And the handheld that you hold in there, what type's that?
This is a PF1, a Pi PF1, which is the sort of the grandfather of all hand portable UHF rigs.
I see. And you have to hold receiver and transmitter in separate hands.
Yeah, this is just the transmitter, this is just the receiver, so you really need both. You can carry that on a little carrying thing on your belt if you want. You press the button and the aerial comes up. And it's not actually just a whip. What you've got inside there is the other half of a dipole, which also forms a little running strip for the battery. So it's quite a clever little design, really. You
use these on CR then normally, do you?
I use these on CR. Yeah, they're quite effective on CR around the Chester area.
And what sort of power output are they?
I think they're about 150 milliwatts, something of that order.
Very good.
150 milliwatts.
Is that the only pocket phones you have?
No, I've also got a later generation pocket phone. This is one of the PF7 pocket phone 70 series. This is the PF5, which is a single channel unit. UHF again. This is also on CR. This puts out about half a watt of RF, but the antenna is internal, the same as on the receiver, so it's not as efficient as the dipole aerial on this one.
Yes.
So in actual fact, the higher power compensates for the fact that you've got a less efficient aerial. So performance-wise, it's about the same as these.
Oh, I see.
Of course, it's
With you saying it's a higher power output, do your batteries last as long, or is it a higher
they probably
capacity
do
battery?
last as long actually, because the capacity of these is 70 milliamp hour, and the capacity of these is 200. So it just about compensates.
Oh, good, that's fine. Right, let's go back to the main station there, and what's that IESO you've got there?
You're looking at that one there.
Yes, that's right.
That's the FT221R, which most of you will probably have seen before, but if you haven't, it's a 2 metre all mode transceiver. Puts out about 20 watts on FM, 20 watts on sideband, and it's also got an AM position as well, and CW, lower sideband, upper sideband. Not that it ever gets used in the lower sideband much on 2 metres.
And how about that device to the right?
This one here.
Yeah, possibly you could just move
over.
over.
To the other
Yeah.
side actually,
Yeah.
you might be able to see that a little bit better. This is the most recent acquisition to the shack actually. It's the Trio TS520S. I used to have an FT101E before this. I've had this about a fortnight now.
This is an HF rig, is it?
So this is an HF transceiver. Covers all bands from 160 right through to 10, and it covers all of 10 metres. About 200 watts PEP input. It's actually tuned.
Oh, that's interesting, because most of the HF rigs we've seen tonight haven't even covered top band, so that's
well,
it's an additional extra for you.
I do quite a bit of operation on top band, so I was very interested in a rig with 160 on it. Now above that we've got the ubiquitous R1000. Every shack should have one. Very useful little receiver.
What sort of frequency range does this cover, Dave?
Now that covers from 200 kcs, or really 100 kcs, where it starts falling off as you get to the low frequency end. It covers all the way up to 30 megs, and it goes in 1 megahertz jumps. You just click the band switch around, and you just dial up the 1 megahertz segment, and then you've got a separate VFO dial which allows you to tune anywhere in the 1 meg that you've selected.
Oh, I see. This is obviously
a read out to a KC.
Very good. This is obviously a very popular receiver. A lot of people appear to be buying them. Have you had any problems or any criticisms with it?
I've not had any problems with it at all. The only criticism I had was when I got it, the AGC time constant, the decay time constant on AM was very, very slow. But there's actually a capacitor wide at the back of that switch bank, which is switched in on AM and switched out on sideband. So what I did was I just put the cutters through it and just took it out completely, so that you get the same delay on AM as you do on sideband. That helps matters, because if you get a burst of noise, if somebody switches a fluorescent light on, or even this soldering iron in fact creates a bit of clag, of course the AGC takes the gain down, and with about a 15-second time delay, it's a bit ridiculous if you're trying to listen to something in the noise. Other than that, it's okay. It's very useful.
That's very good.
The clock on it actually is very, very accurate. It's got a quartz clock built in, and it's something like within a second a month when I've actually timed it against Tim. It's very good.
Yeah, as possibly some people may know or may not, Dave is the man in charge of GB3CR, which is the Chester UHF repeater, and it looks as if he's constructing something UHF there on the bench. What's your project? Is that got anything to do with CR or any updating of CR?
This is not really anything to do with CR. No, it's just a little pocket phone strip in a box, which I'm going to use to transmit into CR from here. Because I don't really need all that much power to get in. In fact, I can wander around the house with these pocket phones quite easily. But the system I used to use is this on the windowsill. It's rather ancient looking equipment, which is the PAR U450, which was originally made as UHF link equipment. In actual fact, GB3CR has got, as the main sort of equipment in the hut, the transmitter and receiver exactly the same as these. Slightly modified, but the basic unit is exactly the same as that. But that in its basic form puts 5 watts out. I really don't need 5 watts from here. So all I'm doing with this, in fact, is putting a pocket phone strip. That is the internals of the PF1 transmitter. Putting it in a box, powering it off 12 volts. But unfortunately, they run off 18 volts, and they don't like 12 volts. So I've just got a little NiCad in there, which I put in series.
I see.
When I'm on transmit, and when I'm not on transmit, there's a relay which automatically switches it to charge itself up.
Yes, I think whilst we're mentioning CR, and you're in charge of it, and obviously the designer and builder of it, How far away from it? Well, should I say how far away is CR from this QTH? Yeah. If you've got to dash up and sort of service it.
If I've got to dash up, it's something like about a 20-minute drive. It's about 4 or 5 miles away, I suppose.
And how reliable is it?
Well, I think it's been on the air well over 2 years, and there's probably been about 2 faults which have closed it down completely, other than mains failures which we can't do anything about. But so I suppose you could say that with the amount of use it gets, it's very, very reliable.
Well, I think we can finish on that note, Dave, where we'd like to thank you very much indeed for letting us have a look around your shack, and particularly for your upkeep of CR. Thank you very much indeed, Dave. GW4GTE. Right, we've finally made access to GW4GSG's shack, as you probably...
Is it working this time?
It's on, yes, it's all working, Eric, yeah. I'm sorry about Eric's attire, but as you can see by all the signs on the door, we've dragged him out of the shower.
Nice to see you, lad. 25 to 11.
Yes, on the, was it the 8th of May 1980? So anyway, Eric, more of the shack here. So can you describe, what's going on, and a little bit about what you do here all day? No?
Oh,
well,
right then.
All right.
Starting from the left?
Yeah, starting from the left. I'll bow out of your way and let you talk to Ted on the camera there, okay? Right, now what have you got on the left-hand side there?
Father Wadley receiver.
Well, come on, move over to the right and let's see it. Go over that side, that's right.
Sorry.
Just because you've got your posing jacket on. Right, the receiver again.
Father Wadley receiver.
Yeah, now what does that cover?
500 kcs to 30 megs.
Anything special about it?
No.
Looks a bit like a transistor radio to me. Can you elaborate a bit more on it?
It's ex-Arthur's, it's not very good.
I see. That's Arthur AWS?
I'm afraid so.
Yes.
Homebrew 4-meter converter.
That looks more like a tobacco tin to me, Eric.
Electrics inside it.
Yeah, this is for tunable IF of what?
Note the 28 to 30.
28 to 30.
Note the MOSFET front end, the Schottky diode ring mixer.
Yeah.
Good, smart, eh?
Is there much activity on 4 meters?
No.
No.
That's why I didn't build a transmit bit to go with it.
Incidentally, I didn't get a chance before, but Eric is located in Newlow, which is about 7 miles west of Chester. And
Yankee November 65 Charlie.
Are you reasonably high above sea level, Eric?
300 feet.
300 feet. Right,
we got to see my homebrew Kia.
I see.
On mod cons, it's got an on-off switch there. Speed control here.
Would it be better mounted in the box, Eric?
No, it works okay actually.
Does it?
It's a belter, yeah.
Do you do much CW?
I do a bit, yes. It doesn't interface with this rig, unfortunately. This rig, by the way, is a note I linked in there. Is a Trio 520S,
yes.
which I just got recently, and the Kia doesn't work into the 520S. It doesn't like the load, so I got to buffer it somewhere or other.
You're going to update it, are you?
Yeah.
What's the blue box on the top of the 520 then?
Blue box is a speech processor, Dayton RS speech processor board.
Oh, I see. It's a commercial one.
Yeah, with provision for a K generator, which I haven't built yet. Hence the speed control.
What sort of key are you using there, Eric?
That's an ordinary, an ex-naval key. Still in current use, I believe.
It's quite a popular one. What's the key in the centre of the paddle? By your tulip mic, that's right.
Well, this is the an iambic key, which I got off Dennis, G4EZO. I had to go with this thing here.
Oh, that's the old-fashioned one, yeah.
Emergency key.
The tulip microphone we obviously all recognise as a Pi one, but the microphone behind it, what vintage is that?
The vintage last week.
I see.
TMP Electronics.
I'd
like to advertise.
Not really, no, but carry on, Eric. That's a Shure, is it?
Found it, yes.
A Shure what?
Shure 444.
444, right.
And this one goes on to, just ad lib in here, U450 transmitter for CR.
Yes, and that's an enormous dummy load, is it? Non-inductive?
Yes, that's for the PF1 dummy load.
Incidentally, for those that aren't aware, the PF1's only 150 milliwatts out, so...
Weather station.
Calibrated in millibars, of course.
Oh.
I think at this time, we should cut and then go on to the other operating area, Ted.
Right.
Right, we've now calmed Eric down again, and
Evening viewers.
he's still about. We are indeed honoured this evening to have a lady amateur in our sights, by the shape of Sue, GW8.
Come on.
FZC. Sorry about that, Sue. We don't hear you on enough, you see, to memorise these call signs.
Make a bigger card next time.
Sue is Eric's better half, I think I can honestly say.
Other half.
Better half. Anyway, away from the formalities, and Sue, the station there looks very interesting. Would you like to run through what's going on there, or should we leave it to Eric?
Well, as he's the one that's more qualified than I, being longer on the job, so to speak, I think I'd better leave it.
Yes, I think we better move quickly to Eric. Right, Eric, first of all, the trio there.
Can I do a PF1? I'll do it.
No.
Yes, do PF1 if you like, Eric.
PF1.
Alright, we'll do your PF1, Eric. How's that?
Shall I move?
Pocket phone adapter. Ex-police. Wonderful piece of equipment. Put your pocket phone in, charges your battery, and gives you audio like this speaker here. Much better than the old PF1.
Should that be mounted in the car then, normally?
It should be, yes.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
I can't do it if it's mounted in the car.
Well, is there anything else you'd like to describe in that corner before we move on to the main rig?
Yes. What the whole station runs off is, can you see that?
A Leo power supply.
Yes.
Leo power supply. That's it. Powers the whole station. Runs off 12. Everything runs off 12 volts. One of my latest homebrew projects. My CR
You
receiver.
don't.
Oh,
yeah.
sorry.
It's not in the box again, Eric.
I'm knitting
It isn't
one.
really, is it? Oh,
I'm
that's,
sure it'd look far better when Sue's knitted one for you.
I can tell.
Come on, Eric, you've given us
with your
enough
white.
stick.
oh yes, R1000.
The main rig.
Yes, best receiver in the world.
What's the box on top of the R1000, Eric?
It's an aerial tuning unit, which is not connected to anything. It's purely for cosmetic value. Tape recorder tied into the R1000. Can also be switched on automatically by it to record things in the middle of the night or early in the morning or whatever. It's supposed to cover from 500 kc to 30 megs continuously. It gives up the ghost of 125 kc, so it's not bad.
Now, were you telling me the other day you'd interface this into your other rig, had you?
Yes.
So what have you actually done?
I disinterfaced it last night because there wasn't enough room on the bench. But I tied that in with this, so that muted on transmit, and that used this aerial on receive, but there wasn't enough room on the bench, so sorry.
So you're back to square one. How about the rig to your right?
Rig to the right is the Yaesu FT221R, 2 metre multi-mode, a bit ancient, but the ones which are superseded don't really do anything else.
So that's really your prime mover for 2 metres in the shack, is it?
Yeah.
That's quite a nice digital clock, I haven't seen before, sir. That was a Yaesu.
It's a digital readout for the 221. 200 cycles.
I thought you forgot to tell us about that, didn't you?
Can you see me B41?
Yes, yes.
B41, very prized piece of equipment in the shack. This is what I learnt my CW on. This B41, ex-marine type receiver, covers from 14.5 kc to 700 kc. A jolly good set. It weighs, I think, 7 stone from what I remember. That's about it, isn't it?
What's our...
Oh, ATU, yes.
Johnson.
Yeah, Johnson Matchbox ATU, American type job. We'll take a kilowatt band switch from 80 through 10.
Is that about it, Eric?
I think that's about your lot, yeah.
Thank you very much indeed.
It's good, isn't it?
Yes.
We hope it is.
Not at all,
Yeah.
but I think at this occasion I'd like to thank the cameraman particularly for all the stick he's had, and particularly for Sue helping us there. And of course, to you, Eric. By all means, dash off back to bed now.
Thank you very much.
Bye, Sue.
Bye!
Right, we're now at Dennis G4EZO shack. This is the large rear bedroom of a semi-detached house in Poole, which is almost in the city centre of Chester. And looking around the room, one wouldn't have even thought this was your shack, Dennis. So give us all a surprise, will you, and open these doors.
Right, okay, well, there's the shack all in there, you see, it's all hidden away, so if anybody comes in the room, it's
So
Well,
you
here's
can
the way.
double as a bedroom if you have visitors or anything like that.
And they don't know
Very,
it's
very
here.
good indeed. All the, well, to look at the outside first, Dennis, did you build all this
I
as well?
built it all myself, yeah.
Very nice indeed.
Custom built so they could get this in it.
Yeah. Well, for those who don't know Dennis, he's our president, and he does a very large amount of monitoring, hence the impressive receiver display here. So Dennis, would you like to tell us what's going on from left to right?
Well, the aerial comes into the shack here, and it's fed through balloons here, and then out to the ATU.
I see that switchable, Dennis, that is it?
This is switchable, so it's a 4-to-1 or a 1-to-1, and there's a knife switch here and a coax switch at the back here, so they can be switched through the ATU into the transmitter at the, here. There's a transmitter here, which is a JRC 505. The output for the receivers goes from the back of the transmitter here and goes to a multi-coupler here, which is the multi-coupler, this one here.
What's that then?
This will supply 7 receivers with no interference to each other and give an equal signal to all receivers. And also it's got a feed here for feeding the 4 audio outputs of 4 receivers, so instantaneously you can switch to any 4 receivers the audio output. Underneath here is the VHF tunable receiver from 30 to 270 megacycles, and then my 2-meter equipment is on the top here. I don't know whether we can see that.
No, we move around, Dennis.
Okay. Yeah, well, we'll do that.
So that's the VHF. Now the receivers, the NRD 505s, 2 of them there, and when I'm in transmit mode, the VFO of the receiver will control the transmitter, as you can see from there, or I can reverse it and put that there, and I can make the transmitter tune the receiver, whichever way.
So they're both synchronised together.
Synchronised together.
I see.
On that. This is a solid state transmitter, 100 watts output.
Does this cover all bands or
Covers all bands, amateur bands, from top band right through to 10 meters. The receivers cover from 0 to 30 megacycles. They receive on 0 to 30 megacycles.
You mentioned the transmitter was solid state. Is that including the PA as well?
Everything is solid state in the transmitter. In actual fact, this is, as I say, the JRC NSD 505. It's the only one in the United Kingdom.
Oh, so you're a first with that one?
The first one that they were brought into the country. This is the only one there is in this country.
The microphone there, is it?
This is the microphone. Now, we've had a bit of fun with the microphone. We have to get one to tailor, to fit, to match this transmitter. We've tried them all, and the one that comes out best is the Shaw 526T Model 2. That's the one there.
What's the red knob on the side there?
It's got a transistorized amplifier in the base, and you can actually adjust that so you get the right amount of audio as a transmitter.
Very good, that. Well, possibly if we can get a different camera angle now, we can just have a look at your
before you go, there's the speakers, the 2 speakers for the receivers, and they also have filters on them.
Very good, that. Right, can we check the... Right, Dennis, the little bit of the shack that we couldn't see from the other camera angle is this corner here.
Well, on here we've got the attenuator, which we use for monitoring. We've got a Hatfield attenuator, which is steps of 1 dB right up to 100 dB. It's very, very useful. It's actually in the aerial lead, and we can knock out signals and get the weak ones out with it. And behind it, you can't see, is a noise bridge. When we're tuning up on odd frequencies, we use a noise bridge to get an absolutely spot-on tune on the ATU over here. This item here is the power supply for the transmitter, and here we have the IC240, which is used on 2 meters as a telephone band.
I like that dig, Dennis.
You like that, yes.
And I see it switched to S11 as well.
It's switched to S11. It always stays on S11, so that if anybody calls me, any members of the club, I can always hear them.
Yeah. This sort of equipment, it's all 240 volt stuff, is it?
All
the reason I ask is that you used to have all Collins equipment.
That's right.
That was 110.
All Collins equipment, it all works on 240. Everything now at 115. This all works now on 240. Everything in the shack is 240 volts now.
Well, thank you very much indeed, Dennis. There's one thing before we go, but I think we're going to have to change the camera angle yet again. I don't think you can... Can you pan onto Dennis's window frame, do you think, Ted, from where you are?
And there's the feeder going through the...
This is very amusing to me, and I'm sure to all of you. Well, Dennis, being an authority on aerials as he is, has obviously had permission, because it's his own aerial, to drill holes in his window, and this is what it looks like. There's the actual ladder feeder coming from outside to the 2 insulators in the glass and onto his ribbon feeder. So that's a way to do your aerials without getting drafts. Thanks very much indeed, Dennis. Very kind of you to let us see your shack.
Right.
Well, we're now at our chairman's house, Dave, with his new call sign, G4JMF, and very impressive your shack looks, David. In fact, more than impressive. Right, I think the best thing to do is to let you describe it to us, and
Yes,
start at the left-hand end.
okay, Alan, and good evening to everybody. It is evening, by the way. It's quite late at the moment.
In actual fact, yes, we're running late. It's 11:40.
It's getting on, so we won't waste much time.
I should have said 23:40. Shouldn't I?
Okay, going from the left, the 2-metre equipment. This is an IC211E all-mode transceiver. It's similar to the equipment which you've seen already.
Sorry, Dave, I'm going to have to stop you.
Okay. Right, well, we're sorry about that, gentlemen, but we had the lights mounted on the camera, and I'm afraid the lens started smoking a bit, so we've had to take the lights off the camera, and now Alan is holding them very efficiently in the air, so I won't keep it too long because I know it's very tiring to be up like that. Okay, as Alan said, not had the call sign very long, since about March. I've been a B licensee since 1965, so this is quite a change for me, working the HF bands. We'll just do a quick rundown of the equipment. The shack, as you see, is quite compact compared to the ones you've seen already. It's not a whole room devoted to it. In fact, this is my bedroom. I'm not sure whether it's a shack with a bed in it or a bedroom with a shack in it, but you get the idea. Going from the left, extreme left here, is the general purpose oscilloscope. It's a telequipment scope, quite old now, but quite sufficient for uses that are put to it in amateur shacks. Quite a nice little scope. Coming onto the equipment rack here, the equipment on the left of the rack, this one here, is the 2-metre multi-mode equipment. That is the IC211E. It's an ICOM product, and it runs 12.5 watts out on FM, upper sideband, lower sideband and CW. There's no AM on this rig, as you've noted on other rigs which have been demonstrated to you. Otherwise the same. It's got two memories in it, 2 VFOs which you can program, normally left on S11, which is in fact what it's on at the moment. The aerials at the present time have been taken down, and therefore I have a curly whip plugged in the back. The aerials have been taken down simply because they're going to be replaced by HF aerials at some very near future date. Coming along to the next equipment, again very familiar to you after the other members have been on, is the R1000 receiver. We won't go into that now. I think that enough has been said about it, except that it is very, very good indeed. And as Dave at GTE said, the clock is very, very accurate indeed. Just a little aside from amateur radio is the receiver on the end, which is an airband scanning receiver. I think a number of people have seen it before, and I normally keep that running when I'm in the shack, just as a matter of interest, to keep my eye on things, and it tends to pick up all sorts of things from quite a wide range.
What sort of channels, Dave, have you got fitted to that?
I've got the 3 Liverpool frequencies, which are the tower, the approach and radar. I've got the a military frequency, which is 122.1. I've got Newcastle on Tyne approach frequency, because I do go up to Newcastle on Tyne quite a few times in my job. Manchester control, Harden approach, and the emergency frequency of 121.5, and that's running all the time.
Is that battery operated as well?
Battery and mains, or 12 volt car battery.
So you can carry it in the car if you want to?
Yes, indeed. Coming down to the lower deck of the equipment is the main station equipment. In the centre we have the FT901, This is the DE model. In fact, it's exactly the same as the DM, except that it hasn't got the memories fitted, or the DC power supply, or the FM board. But apart from that, it's exactly the same. Very nice piece of equipment made by Yaesu. All bands 160 to 10 meters, plus WWV and JJY, and an auxiliary position also on the band switch, which you can fill one of the new bands if you wish. What they don't tell you about the rig, and what I found out, is that it also has CB, but it is not marked on the band switch. It's a matter of interest. It will transmit upper and lower sideband, of course, CW, for which there is a built-in keyer, and FSK and AM, but of course no FM on this particular model because it has no board. Usual sort of things, digital readout, you've got Vox, carrier, keyer speed, squelch for when the FM board is fitted, and your mic gain, and an audio peak filter for Morse, which you can vary, and it really picks out the Morse. On the other side, the normal controls, we have the plate tuning, loading, pre-selector, RF processor level, which is a very, very nice feature of the transmitter. It makes a very great difference on transmit. Your band switch, your RF gain, and your clarifier, which is quite normal. And on this side, is a very nice feature of this rig, is the reject filter, which means you can insert a slot in the bandpass of the receiver, which enables you to null out any interfering heterodynes on the signal. The inside control is the width control, which varies the bandpass of the main filter at a maximum, I think it is 2.4 or 2.7, to a minimum of whatever you like. On the right here is the antenna tuner, the FC901. This is the tuner that goes with the 901 equipment and is fully fitted for all bands 160 to 10. Also, there is a direct position on the switch. If you turn the switch round, you can go straight through the ATU without using the tuning controls, but it leaves the SWR and power meters in circuit all the time. The power meter is calibrated in 25 watts, 250 watts or 500 watts, and you can select up to 4 antennas on the switch here. Actually, I've got one antenna in the garden, which is a vertical. That's on number 1 position, and number 2 position is a dummy load, which is under the bench. Usual sort of ancillaries here, a little watt meter, which you saw at TZO Shack, same sort of thing, which I use on the 211E. And the little extra is the desk mic, which I find very, very nice indeed. It makes a change from holding a mic in your fist.
What makes the mic there?
Both hands. The mic is a Yaesu, and it is designed for the 901. Just over here is the aerial rotator. I do have an AR40 rotator, which is not used at the moment, but will be in the near future, perhaps if I get a small HF beam. And the world map on the wall. Which
yes, I think that really sets your shack off there. That looks very, very nice.
Well, thanks very much. Yeah, that's actually one of the new RSGB maps, and the detail on it is quite good. I can recommend it to you. It's very good indeed. For a world map, it's got quite a lot of place names on it. I think that's about it.
Well, that's very kind of you, Dave. Thanks very much indeed.
You're welcome.
I don't think I mentioned that Dave is situated in Whitby, which is about 7 miles north of Chester, and he puts in a good signal into the Chester area, and of course so he should do, being the chairman of the club, shouldn't you, Dave?
Yes, not very high here though. I think it's under 200 feet.
Right.
About 120, I think. So.
Well, thank you very, very much indeed, Dave.
You're welcome.
And what the viewers don't know, that Dave's been holding the lights all evening, and I know what it's like now to have a stiff arm, so many thanks for your help, Dave, tonight.
You're welcome.
And particular thanks to our cameraman, Ted, J8HYI, who's supported us all evening with the camera.
Yes, indeed.
And he's really on his knees.
Yes, we're going to revive him very shortly now.
I see. We'd normally like to finish the programme with the normal dulcet tones of Hal G4EZO to give you his epilogue, but unfortunately he's not available this evening. So from all 3 of us here, that's Ted, G8HY, our cameraman, Dave, our chairman, and also our lighting engineer, and from myself, Alan 4EZO, good night.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.